All right, everyone, all my hungry people in the building. Hope you're hungry for some solutions this morning because you're going to be getting a plate full of that first course, second course, third course. Everything's going to be in there. I'm so excited to have you here. So excited to see you. I just want you to know a few things before we get started. So, before we launch into the discussion, we just want you to know that this section is going to be translated into not one, two, three, four, five, but six of the UN languages. And you can use that interpretation button at the bottom of your screen to change languages anytime during the session if you want to practice, other languages. You feel free to do that as well. We want this to be super duper duper interactive. We want to hear from you. Drop your comments in the chat. We will be recording them and keeping track of them. We also want you to interact with each other and us. It is not a concert. This is a forum. So we're going to be having conversation today. The only reason we have you muted is because of interpretation, right? Also, the organization should have already indicated who will be speaking later on, but if you would like to speak and you didn't submit your name in advance, you can just raise your hand and send a message in the chat. Let us know where you're from, what you'd like to talk about, and we will give you the floor. As easy as that. Can you believe it? And then also we are going to be using the Q&A feature of this platform. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop that in there. Let us know where you're from. Let us know also what you want to talk about and your organization, and that would be great. Just drop that in the Q&A. All of your questions will be recorded. So even if we don't address them in this first session, we're going to address them after, and we'll let you know how to do that. We want to remind you, all you young people, all you young at heart people, that we act in the interest of youth. So this is what we are here for. The chat will be extracted from Zoom, so we will not lose any of your beautiful, amazing comments. Thank you, Amira, sending you love. Love that. And also, anything we don't get to today, we will address tomorrow. And we will be using a new tool. It's called Menti. It's an interactive tool. You guys are going to love it. If you haven't heard of it before, don't worry. It's super easy to use, and very user friendly. So we'll give you instructions on that when it comes up. Also, keep an eye on the chat. Our colleagues will be sharing some more information. Our amazing team from the FAO will be helping you with anything that you need. So look out for them. Tommaso and Maria will be helping you with any technical difficulties, although we're tech pros, so we won't be having any of those. Woo! Woo, that was a lot. You guys ready to get started? If you are ready to get started, just drop it in the chat. I just want you to say ready, and we're going to get started shortly. Okay, here we go. So here's a quick question. Where are you joining from? Drop it in the chat. I know I saw some already and I could make some guesses based on the food, but I am not totally sure. So we have India in the building. France is also in the building. Italy, Egypt, South Africa, Germany, Switzerland, Sweden, Spain, Zambia. Big up Zambia. Spain again. Big up Spain. Love that. Switzerland. Fantastic. Fantastic. Somebody dropped their area code. Brazil 66790 something. Fantastic. Ghana is there too. Yes, Giovanna. Ghana is in the house. Okay. Also Jamaica is in the house. So that's where I'm from, but I'm in Ghana. So both places, you know what I mean? South Sudan, Ukraine is here. Okay, please go to menti.com and type the code 6679078 so that you can. Okay, thanks, Pramisha. I thought you were throwing up your coat. Fantastic.
Rachel,
It's
the interpreters asked me if you could put some earphones and speak a little bit slower
absolutely
so we can have all the language and all the interpretation run
lower.
smoothly. Thank you.
Let's find some headphones then. But the
That's no
excitement
pressure at all.
and the moderation's perfect.
Right? We're gonna be excited at a slower pace. All right, we're gonna slow it down. All right. Someone is from Sri Lanka. I'm gonna ask for headphones shortly. Thank you. Fantastic. China and Italy are here. Thank you all for being here from all of these wonderful places. We welcome you. We welcome you. We welcome you with open arms. All right. So now I am going to turn it over to two amazing people. The first is Matteo, who is event coordinator of the World Food Forum and has over 17 years in the UN. He is always pushing for youth participation in various capacities, and he's a young person at heart. Also, Maria is going to be joining us. She's a young professional working at the Food and Agriculture Organization, and she is one of the engines behind the World Food Forum, leading the Youth Action Track in the Youth Assembly. They will also be introducing a very, very special guest. So, Matteo and Maria, welcome to the stage. Thank you for being here and for all of your work.
Thank you, Rachel. And actually, I believe that everybody in this room and in behind the scenes are all parts of engines of the World Food Forum. This could have not been possible without all of the panelists that you participants see here today, and many, many more that are still behind the scenes, taking care of, I don't know how many parallel events we have going on just today throughout the week.
So many and so exciting. And please, guys, check the 6Connect World Food Forum platform and participate in the many exciting side events. But Maria, what an incredible journey this has been so far.
What a busy, incredible journey.
It has been great. We finally made it to the first World Food Forum Youth Assembly. And again, my heartfelt word of appreciation goes certainly to Kazuki Kitahoka, that has been the World Food Forum coordinator, and also to Maximo Torero and all the people behind the World Food Forum that makes this possible. Thank you very much for your dedication, and thank you very much for making this happen. This means a lot for us. Yeah. Your dedication has been, it is appreciated by all the young people that are here today. We understand that it's going to be making tremendous change. But what we also understand is that for the first time ever, and Rachel, you said it, I've been working 17 years in the UN, and arguably for the first time ever, I've seen such a large group of motivated young people, but also World Food Forum champions, FAO colleagues that gave everything they could to create arguably the first independent youth-led platform for the youth to speak about what matters to them in the food transformation. We are making history today. That's how it feels. We're making history because we want young people to be at the center of the transformation of our food systems. A lot has been said and a lot has been done. And the World Food Forum, for me, has been an incredible personal journey, but an incredible journey because we have so many partners and so many young people that are dedicating their time, their passion, and their vision and their dreams for what they want to see. And this is what the World Food Forum is all about. It's about the young people, their dedication, and their passion. But Maria, you are one of those. You're one of those that drove this youth action track. Tell me, how was it?
Only one of many. And I actually really do want to underline how it's incredible that every person that's involved in this World Food Forum is under volunteering. We have side jobs, full-time jobs, 3, 4, 5 jobs. It's incredible to see how much the mission and the calling of the World Food Forum has really motivated and changed already so much. I mean, within FAO already, but I can promise you all around the world. I think that the best thing of the World Food Forum is the fact that it's a network of partners. Yes, it was born by FAO's Youth Committee. Yes, it was called upon by our Director General. Yes, it was incredibly pushed by Maximo Torero, our Chief Economist, and by Matteo Landi, by Kazuki here on the panel as well. But it's a network of partners from all around the world, from local, national, regional coordination. I mean, it's a lot. I hope that the participants that are in this room have managed to not only witness the Youth Action Assembly growth, but also all of our other tracks. And I think that that's the most special part of the World Food Forum, that agri-food system transformation is no joke. It's no hobby. It's a very complex topic. It takes a lot of expertise, but the World Food Forum managed to break that silo, right?
Absolutely.
Not only between organizations, not only between people, between geographical barriers, language barriers. Thank you also to our interpreters here in the room, and that they're supporting all of our events. It's an incredible support to make sure that the World Food Forum is the most inclusive space possible. But I think that it's incredible how it was envisioned to make sure that everybody felt like they could have a role. Everybody felt that agri-food system transformation was not this very long, complex term, but it was actually something that we could all do on a daily basis through music, through art, through cooking, through assemblies, just as this one, through movies. It was an incredible ride, and I'm incredibly honored to have my co-leads, Emma Reistano, Tommaso Ruggero, Victoria Valenzi. I mean, I can't nominate them all because they're really hundreds.
Giovanna, Michelle, Simona, there is so many people, the list is so long. But you know what I feel? That this is the beginning of a beautiful journey.
It is.
Because this is what the World Food Forum, it's incredible about. This is just the beginning. This is the first.
Matteo and Maria. Oh,
Yes.
sorry. I have a question for you guys. Why
Go
is
ahead.
the Action Assembly important? And how did this whole thing come about? We want to know. How did it happen?
So the idea, the fundamental sentiment behind it was to stop asking youth to do things and to involve them in the decision-making processes and in the drafting of these texts and in these meetings, in these conventions. So the Youth Action Assembly, if you may, is the diplomatic side of things, the assembly side of things. And the idea was not only to sit them at the decision-making table and to make sure that youth do lead the change, but also to create these bridges between those who are already making decisions and youth. It's not only about youth, it's about bridges, it's about private and public sector, it's about NGOs, it's about literally anybody who is involved in agri-food system transformation to have a seat at the table, bring innovative ideas. And I think that the best way to talk about how the Youth Action Assembly really came about is to talk to these other faces that you see on the panel.
Absolutely.
Who did this amazing work that you will witness between today, tomorrow, and the closing ceremony. So if you may, I would actually prefer them to kind of talk about all of the incredible work that they did.
But you know what? There is one thing that I treasure. You say that it's not just about the assembly, it's about cooking, it's about inspiring, it's about music. And there is no other person that I could imagine that could speak about that piece of the person that wrote and sang the World Food Forum anthem. And I'm talking about you, my man, A.Y. Young. How are you doing, man?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Very good. You got the floor, my brother. Tell us about your journey that brought you to the World Food Forum and give us some energy to kickstart this first Youth Assembly.
I mean, well, guys, first off, like, I just wanted to thank all you guys. Like, by the way, all the youth that's listening, like, this is legitimately like a group of people that are about, like, they're passionate about actually getting things done. That's why I'm here, yo, because I've been in the UN for a minute. I'm one of the 17 young leaders, and like, I'll definitely say that not every organization is, trying to really bring people together and break down like the silos, you know what I'm saying, to make it happen. So I'll say that. I'm like, the story of how I got connected with you guys, I'm not sure. Shout out to Kazuki. I mean, we've been doing so much, man. All you guys. I'll say this though. I've been on this journey to kind of break down all these like barriers in the UN, in the world, right? All these silos and bring people together so I can actually see change. I'm about actually seeing change, yo. Like, I'm used to doing a concert and then the next day, you know what I'm saying, somebody getting access to energy. So when I see with the World Food Forum, when I'm listening to you guys speak and I see all these youth, all you guys plugging in today, it just really excites me. I want you guys to know I really do believe that change is going to come from taking an actual step every day, right? And everything that the World Food Forum and you guys are bringing together, and the information you guys are sharing is information that all of us as outlets, as people, as individuals, as youth can actually utilize to take a step every day, right? And again, I'll always say that change comes from passion, yo. And so just continue to move in passion and like utilize your passion to power change. So yo, I'm just anxious to see what everybody's gonna be doing. You know what I'm saying? So you know what I'm saying? You guys are lit. This is gonna be super tight. I'm happy to be a part of it.
Thank you so much, AY. Thank you so much. And the anthem, it's one of the most amazing piece of music that I've heard recently. And it's been an incredible journey to work with you. You were very impressive. Rachel, the floor is back to you. We see you. You put the headset on. We really appreciate it. So our interpretation service can function better.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Are you hearing me better? Yes? Okay, great. Fantastic. I'm so happy to hear that. I love the energy in this room. Big up yourself, AY. Love your work. We're big fans. Thank you for working with us. We're excited as well. So we heard from Mateo and Maria. Thank you, Mateo and Maria, for all of that. Very quick question for you guys, though. One last quick question is, how can the Youth Assembly connect to the rest of the World Food Forum and to the FAO? And is the UN doing anything to connect with us as well, outside of that?
Rachel, can you please repeat the question?
Absolutely. The question is, how can the Youth Assembly connect to the rest of the World Food Forum and to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN? How does it connect?
You know what?
Are you hearing me okay?
Can you hear me well?
Yes.
And Kazuki, can you hear us well? Because there is no better person that I would love to bring on and to answer that question than the World Food Forum coordinator, Kazuki Kitaoka. Kazuki, you have the floor.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Yes. So yeah, thank you so much for this question. I mean, the assembly, I think, really is the core and the heart of the World Food Forum. It is all about young people coming together, discussing and deciding on the future of our food systems, and what you would like to do and what you would like to see as actions towards this better future that we are aspiring towards. So if we want to achieve the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, we need to start, well, we would have had to start a long time ago, but we really need to take action immediately. And I think that this Youth Action Assembly is the right place to discuss these actions, to decide on these actions, and really make a push towards the implementation of that from hopefully from tomorrow on, when we have an action compendium put together and presented to the world and also to the Director General of the FAO. And here comes the link to the FAO. Of course, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN is the primary food policy body of the world, and we believe that one very important aspect is to present your actions and your ideas and your changes that you want to see to the head of this organization, which is going to happen tomorrow, and to bring it to not only to this organization, but also to all of the members of this global policy body, to make sure that what you are deciding in this important assembly is actually becoming reality. So the assembly is your place to make yourself heard, to discuss the actions that you want to see, the change that you want to see, the goals that you want to achieve, and to bring that to the most essential global policy place that we have in the United Nations to make change and hopefully a reality in the future. So that is what I would from my perspective, what I would like to see. But of course, the assembly is in your hands. You are the drivers here. You're not just shouting and advocating towards others. No, you are the centerpiece here of the change that you want to see, that you want to discuss, and the actions that you would like to implement from the day after tomorrow, when we hopefully have a really strong and really actionable action compendium coming out of this assembly. And I'm really happy that everybody is here. Be active. I really hope that this will be a starting point for youth action to happen. And with that, back to you, Matteo and Rachel. Thanks so much for the question.
Thank you, Kazuki. That was amazing. I think we are all super clear on why we are here, how we connect, and we are definitely assured that we are in the right place. Up next is a super amazing human being. You guys will agree with me. Jim is a zero hunger activist from the Philippines. He's also one of the writers of the HELPE report. He is here to talk to us a bit about the Youth Action Assembly. So, with this, welcome Jim Cano to the stage. Hey, Jim, how are you
Hey,
today?
Rachel. I'm good. I'm good. Good afternoon from the Philippines.
Fantastic. Good afternoon.
Yeah. Good
Good
afternoon,
morning
good
from
morning,
Ghana,
good evening to everyone.
everyone, wherever they are.
Absolutely.
Jim, I have a question. Could you give us a brief overview of the Youth Action Assembly? What are the components?
Yeah. So thanks, Rachel, for that. And I think before I jump into that, I just want to quickly go through a short anecdote of like how significant this moment is in this
Yes,
point of
please.
time, because back in 2018, when I went to Rome to participate in the Committee on World Food Security, there was a discussion around youth participation, youth involvement in policy spaces in food and agriculture policies, but there was no platform that could host young people and in their create that table, right? So it's not about
Mm,
inviting youth to a specific table, it's giving young people the power to create this own table, their own table, and then invite
absolutely.
policymakers in. And I'm going to drive that down to the Youth Action Assembly, which is what it is right now. And this is a really good and significant point in time, because we now have this platform that allows us to come together as young people who want to see change in our food systems. And so what is the Youth Action Assembly really? As you can see in the screen, it's a dedicated, apolitical, sustained, self-organized, and institutional space for youth in agri-food systems. Um, for advocacy and for action that's founded on inclusivity, diversity, and respect of all persons. And basically, we run that. We're hoping that this would progress as given it three main pillars. And so as you would see in the next slide, we've basically come up with a summary of the three main documents that would kind of support and bring together what the Youth Action Assembly is. So as you would see in the blue font, you'd have Youth Action Compendium, Youth Mechanism, and Action Plan working together hand in hand so that it drives the Youth Assembly. Now, what I'm going to do right now, Rachel, is just basically an overview, and
Yay.
the in-depth discussions will be taken on by my colleagues later on. And so to go over these documents, the first one is the Youth Action Compendium, which really summarizes different youth calls to action of for members and partners around agri-food systems topics. And then what we've done is to map them according to the four betters framework of the strategic framework of FAO, right? And so if you would notice, there's the four betters, which are your better production, better nutrition, better environment, better life. And we've really mapped out the different types of calls, manifestos, and commitments that young people have towards that align with these. And then we've put that together. And that's what is the Youth Action Compendium. The second one is the Youth Mechanism, right? And so basically the mechanism coordinates and facilitates the youth engagement that the Assembly hopes to do and drive together forward, fostering partnerships and the network for action in connection to already existing youth networks and groups. And basically it brings all the stakeholders together. It kind of like leads that direction. And so watch out for that discussion on the Youth Mechanism also, because we have an interesting session on that specific topic document as well. And last but
Looking
not
forward
the least,
to it.
yeah, last but not the least, it's the action plan. And basically this one presents the goals of the youth action track in relation to the World Food Forum, taking into consideration the mapping exercise that we've done with the Youth Action Compendium, and then kind of drive that into action on the ground and broadcast the vision of the World Food Forum Youth Action as well. So all in all, those three work together, as you would see here, in a way that the compendium of actions lays the foundation for the mechanisms to gather actionable solutions for the four betters. It's also shaped by the priorities within the youth mechanism. And who is the youth mechanism? It's basically you and me, all of us young people. And we're going to be identifying what are our priorities in the food system, what needs to be done. Now, the question is, how can we continue and progress in terms of interaction and engagement? Hence, this question on your screen right now. So we have this question: what platforms and tools do you believe would ensure interaction and engagement with global youth? So go ahead to mentimeter.com or menti.com and then type the code, as you would see on the top, 6679078, and write your answers to this question, which, and we'd love to hear what your suggestions are. So go on to the site menti.com, type the code in 6679078. Put your answers, put your thoughts in, put your ideas. We'd love to get your contributions. What are the platforms? What are the tools that you think and you believe that could ensure interaction with global youth around the world? Let's go.
We want to hear from all of you. So go ahead to Menti and drop your comments in. I want to hear from our friends from Egypt, Italy, France, Zambia, Kenya, everywhere. We want to hear from you. Jim, while they are dropping in their amazing comments, which we will factor in, I have a question for you. So, what do you personally envision for the Youth Action Assembly?
Well, personally, for me, this is like what I'm really expecting is that the assembly becomes this continuous space for young people to bring out and raise the kind of issues, challenges that they want to address, and also a platform where they can bring in their creative and innovative solutions that addresses food systems, right? So you were saying something about being hungry for solutions, being hungry
Yeah.
for change. And that's this is the space that all of us can come in together. And then this is a shared space. This is not one organization's space. This is everybody's space. And I love it how, you know, the Youth Action Assembly basically is a manifest of it's manifesting the pillars that we actually wrote in the HLPE report. You know, we wrote about the 4 pillars of agency, equity, rights, and recognition of young people in food systems for them to be employed and engaged. And absolutely, the Youth Action Assembly is that one space that could help give young people those pillars and drive the direction of food systems down the road.
Without a doubt, we can see why you're here, fired up and ready to go. Thank you
Yeah,
so much, Jim, for all of
we
your
have
hard
some
work, for your
suggestions already
passion.
on the screen. So we have different
Wow.
platforms and tools: online consultations, written consultations, live consultations, absolutely consultative processes, participatory processes. We'd love to see that. A platform where it is easy to see who is part of and what skills they have to share. Absolutely. Thumbs up to that. We have different tools being shared here: Miro, Slack, WhatsApp, Discord, Facebook, and all of these things are for all of us to decide what's the best way to move forward together so that we can continue to interact, even if Rachel is in Ghana, I'm in the Philippines, Lizanne in the Netherlands, but all together we can work closely, hand in hand, virtually, and then implement actions on the ground. Love the solutions, guys. Come on, keep it coming. And there's a question: can we meet in person next year as Youth Action Assembly? I love that. I love that. I think that's something for us, for all of us to look forward to. Perfect. This is absolutely great. And so I think, you know, with that, this is really good. And this is just the start, guys. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And we're just about to go deeper into the different discussions. Oh, I see a comment and a suggestion in Chinese, and I'd love to request and of course look at the talents and skills of our interpreters to help
Mhm.
disseminate that for our audience and participants. So thank you again. Of course, a huge shout out to our interpreters who are doing really great behind the scenes, giving access to all people on the platform right now. So with that, Rachel,
Absolutely.
I'm gonna hand it over back to you. This is a really good start already.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your passion. Just want everyone to know that all of your comments, all of your feedback on Menti will be saved, and we will be implementing all of your suggestions in order to make this as inclusive, productive, sustainable, and effective as possible. All right. So now I know you guys are like, there can't be any more. There's so much more amazing things to go. I want to introduce you to Lisanne, who is a young professional from the Netherlands working in the connection between technology, water, and food. She is a powerhouse in the World Food Forum Assembly and a leader within the group. She is also a remarkable World Food Forum champion. Just want you to welcome Lisanne to the stage. So happy to see you, Lisanne. Be
Hi,
very
Rachel.
attentive to
Thank
her
you.
presentation.
I will share my screen. Yes.
And don't worry, audience, we have a dedicated section for you. But Lisanne's going to give you some gems right now. Yay!
Thank you. I will try to share my screen.
Sure.
Yes. Here it comes. Great. So this is not. Let me see. Sorry for this.
No worries. We're so excited for this presentation.
Yes. Can you see the
Looks
screen?
beautiful. Yes.
Can you see it? Great. I will talk to you about the Youth Action Compendium. And well, as you all know, the past periods, youth have made themselves heard in a variety of ways, from statements to manifests to pledges. All kind of different statements came about. But before, I would like to again express that we want to do this with all of you together. So if you have comments during the presentation, if you see something, oh, that I do not understand this, or have a remark, please indicate it in the chat, because we'll think about this all together. And as you can see here on the slides, there's a little bit of a sneak peek from the food icons that we will also talk about later. But first of all, the action compendium. What is it and how did it came about? This is a very short overview of that, and later there will be another session dedicated completely to the compendium itself. But first of all, the goals. So we wanted to create a repository for decision makers and policymakers at various levels as sort of a guiding tool, but also to show our priorities as youth. And also to create a knowledge and action repository for youth as an inspiration with case studies, and also already existing actionable solutions. So in short, how did it came about? Well, first of all, what we did is that we collected worldwide statements and manifestos from a range of groups. And again, here I have to acknowledge, and the work group creating this document also have to acknowledge that there were an incredible amount of statements and manifestos that are out there with amazing asks from youth. But of course, we also have to acknowledge that there are limits. So this is a first draft, and later we can also, of course, it's an ongoing process and we can collect more. But for now, we started with 10 worldwide documents as a starting point. And what we then did with these documents, we coded them along line the 4 better. So the better production, better nutrition, better environment, and the better life. And we mapped them along these 4 to see, well, where are those priority statements within these 4 betters. And then what we did is we lay them over each other, see how they synthesize together, summarize them together, also see where the main priority areas were laying, and these we collected into one document. So, but then you might wonder, what can we do with that? So first of all, as I explained, we can use them to have sort of a summarized statement for actionable solutions towards policymakers. But also, if we talk about, and this morning I heard someone saying, as youth, we can work together to grow positive solutions together. So if we're talking about positive solutions, we can use this action compendium also to map these actions per priority area to see, oh, I'm a young person and I want to do something within, let's say, composting. Then you can see, oh, is there already someone doing this? And perhaps it can also give you some inspiration on how to do this for young people, but also perhaps for policymakers. So that's about the compendium. But then another question that you might have is, why not select an already existing statement? Well, that is mainly because, well, there are actually 3 reasons for this. First of all, we want to make this an inclusive platform, so not select one document or one group over another. But also, if we have more statements and we combine them into one, then we have a broad youth voice, but if we would select one, we might miss statements. But if you have more, you can see, oh, there's one, there's another one from another statement. So you have really a collective youth voice within the compendium. And finally, with combining them, we can also select and identify main priority areas that come up. So we try to have an inclusive as possible collection of actions. That is the main reason to have this summary of all these statements. So that's really a brief overview. And I'm happy to take some questions on the general idea of this compendium. I asked Rachel, are there any questions on this?
Yes, absolutely. You know, there are always questions. And for everyone in the audience who hasn't put a question yet, if you have a question for Lisanne, go ahead and drop it in the chat. Lisanne, I
Yeah.
am just kind of amazed that all of this work and innovation has been done in such a short time. Can you imagine what this will be like by next year? I'm just already thinking about it.
Yeah,
All
it's
right,
an
so
ongoing process. So there will also be working groups on this where you can join and people can, that you can come with your own statements, bring them to the table, please do, so that we really have a collective statements.
love that. So the first question is, how does the compendium connect to the youth mechanism coming after?
Well, the youth mechanism, so that's like everyone within the Youth Action Assembly. So if we have a compendium, it can sort of be the foundation of the youth mechanism. So all the youth groups involved. So that we really have like a sort of a reference where you can refer to, or as you can say, oh yeah, this is the goal that we together can take. And you can also refer back, oh, did we reach those goals at the end of the year? And that's also
Right.
why I acknowledge that there are many different action areas that we can work on, but we also have to make selections. So if you, that's why we also make that overlay to see what are now the main priority actions that youth ask for. And we also again ask any of you to explain, to come up with your main priority actions.
Wow, that's incredible. Fantastic. Here's the second question for you. Why did you choose the documents that were used?
That's a really great question. So we mainly chose now the ones that have a worldwide coverage at first, and also the ones that were written within this year, or at least within the year 2020, 2021, to have the most recent ones. And again, I acknowledge also that there are many written before that, but we had to make like a selection at first. So we choose the ones that are worldwide coverage, quite large. So for instance, the Act for Food, Act for Change campaign is in there, the HLPE report is in there, the Indigenous Youth Manifesto is in there, the Bites of Transformation statements is in there. So that we also have a diverse range of groups, because that's also what we selected on. So we had a look that we would include different groups. So not only, for instance, private sector or civil society, but really to combine them and see where they overlap. That was a main importance for us.
Awesome. We have a question kind of related to that. It's from Jenna Tesdall. Is how were the youth statements analyzed in the youth compendium selected? How did you select them?
Well, we mainly, what we was a little bit too short to go over that, but to give you a brief overview of that. So we mapped them according to a coding mechanism. So we used Taget for that, which is a coding program. The documents were inserted there, and we coded them along the 20 PPAs from the FAO strategic framework within the 4 Betters. And for those who don't know about the PPA, it's like the priority. I always have to think about that, the priority decision areas, if I say it correctly. So there are 20 of them, and we coded them along those lines, so that we have a diverse range group. And then we looked within a Miro board, which people can enter if they want. Within a Miro board, we added all the statements, grouped them along the different priorities, and see, where are now the ones that many statements and manifestos talk about. So we went looking, we colored them based on different reports and see, oh, which statements do have the same similar colors, to see where the main priorities were laying. I hope that's a bit clear.
Super clear, but also very intense, scientific and strategic. Nothing random. I love that. That's fantastic. Very impressive. So
Thanks.
we have a comment from someone. So she is saying, let me tell you who it is. Her name is Sada Katab. Wants to work with the youth in the world in nutrition and health. She wants to work with the youth in the world in nutrition and health. And then I see a comment from Giovanna, or it's a question. She says, can individuals who are not part of an organization join? And if I want to help you, where should I go?
That's a good question. I think people who would like to join, well, at least we have already a WhatsApp group together. But people that want to join, I think they can best send an email. And I also looking then to the leaders from the working group mechanism or the youth action mechanism, because that is something that will be also explained later. But if you have a preference for a specific working group, you can also use the Google Forms for that. And I'm asking my sweet colleagues if they can put those Google Forms in the chat now, so that you already can sign up for a specific preferred group. And then later we can contact you, because you can also put your email in there. We can contact you if you would like to join a specific group.
Fantastic. I also see a question from Francesca, but I see that it is being answered in the chat by these superstars. So Lisan, with that, we want to say thank you very much for all of the work you are doing. This is truly phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal. I know you can't see them, but everyone is applauding you right now. Standing ovations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Together, we're better. Fantastic. So, audience, it is your time to shine. We're going to take a few questions from you. You can use the Q&A function that you'll see at the bottom right there. It says Q&A. You can submit your questions there, and they will be answered. All right, I see one already from Bormé. I hope I pronounced that correctly. What is the criteria for the youth group to join? What is the criteria for the youth group to join? Is there anyone who would like to take that one?
Maybe someone from the youth mechanism also can respond to that.
Absolutely. I see Jenna. Jenna's like, I can. It's me.
Hello,
so
thank
Jenna,
you so
what
much.
is the criteria?
Yeah, we're going to talk about this also in the upcoming portion on the youth mechanism, but that's something for everyone who is here who wants to discuss on that, about exactly who they want to see taking part. But of course, the intent is for it to be inclusive for so many youth as possible to engage, right? So I think that's the main idea behind the youth mechanism, is to bring all these youth voices together. And exactly how that works is the devil is in the details. And that's what we want to discuss then with this youth mechanism document, to make sure that the intent of being inclusive is set out in that founding document. And over to you. Thank you.
Very well answered, Jenna. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions that anyone would like to ask in the chat or in the Q&A feature? Checking. All right, awesome. Okay, so most of your questions will be answered later on, we hope, we think, we expect. I am gonna hand it back over to Mateo to present a super amazing video, the Food Icons video. Mateo, welcome back. We're excited.
Thank you. I love the discussion, Rachel. Thank you. You're an amazing moderator, but you are as amazing as everybody that is participating. Thank you for the question and answer, guys and ladies. we really appreciate this engagement, and we really, really, really wish that this is just the beginning of a very, very rich discussion and extremely engaging. So I want to introduce another two amazing individuals and human beings. One that is in the middle of the night, Douglas Clayton. I think it's connecting from the US West Coast, so it must be literally in the middle of the night. But he took the time to be with us, and the other one is Alberto, which I think is geographically much closer to us in the same time zone. And an entire team of food icons that made what an incredible thing that they made possible, right? So they have started producing food icons that actually already the young people have put the young leaders have put already in their presentation. That was an amazing, amazing takeover of the food icons. But Alberto and Douglas, let me give you the floor so you can give us a little bit of a quick intro to the video that we're about to see. Alberto, Douglas, you have the floor. Good morning, Douglas, or very, very late night, Douglas, and good morning, Alberto. The floor is yours.
Great, fantastic. Well, first of all, thanks for having us here. And yeah, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm in California, but I wanted to take the opportunity to share food icons with you because it's something we're very excited about, and it's a project that has been underway for 2 years. It began with a question: is it possible to create a global language to explain our food system, a universal language, one that everyone could share? And so when we set out to embark on that journey to figure that out, we brought in food system experts, we brought in designers, and they got together and they said, well, you know, if you did something like that, you would need to do it with icons. And so we began a journey that then led us to Adobe, where Adobe said, hey, you know, we have an icon team. We can actually figure out a system where if you follow these rules, every icon will look the same. So once we had that, we then said, let's create a global challenge, the Food Icons Challenge. And the Food Icons Challenge has been going since November of last year. We have designers from almost 90 countries, about 750 designers that have joined, all to create a universal language for our food system.
Thank you, Douglas. Alberto, there is anything that you would like to add before we're gonna send the video? The floor is yours.
Yeah, actually, yes. Thank you, Matteo. The amazing thing of this project is that now farmers, food producers, retailers, and consumers will now be able to use these open source icons as a shared language to depict everything, like from basic elements like water and peanuts to more complex concepts like no-till farming and buffer strips. And now we're going to share with you a video that is going to show you what is to come with these food icons. So thanks, Matteo, back to you.
Thank you, Alberto. I think that we are ready to launch the video.
If you're going to create a truly global food culture where everyone is represented, the first thing you probably have to do is come up with a language that is shared. It's probably not going to be words. It's probably going to be images, icons.
Food icons is a way of overcoming at least partially linguistic and geographic barriers. It's an ambitious project meant to serve people throughout and across the food system, from consumers to professionals of all kinds.
What we decided to do was draft designers and food system experts from all over the world to join us in that journey, to create a truly universal language that can be shared by everybody in our food systems.
I really like this double mission here.
If I speak Hindi, that's my first language, and you speak English, even if you see one particular icon, we are literate in that same language.
Yo creo que es súper relevante e importante tener una alternativa más de un lenguaje, más allá del escrito o del hablado, y por eso yo creo que los iconos son una parte importante de la cultura actual.
Foodicons has a process where artists and designers create icons, but then go through a series of steps where they receive feedback from design experts, but also food system experts.
And these designers have done a terrific job trying to interpret it in a way that is both simple, but yet informative.
Not only are we crowdsourcing these icons from people all over the world, but they're all going to be open source. There's going to be no limitations on anyone in the world using them for essentially any kind of practice.
I think timing is everything. And I think this is that moment where people want to be part of something bigger than themselves and want to contribute to something that has a high degree of utility.
It's really important to me to work for something greater than just myself, my country, or my culture, and be certain what we do here bring values for everybody in the world.
It's clear that there's a visual language evolving that is teaching us how all these terms can relate to each other. And the most exciting part of this project has yet to happen, and that's seeing how people all over the world use them. We expect to see uses we haven't even imagined as people communicate how they work and eat to all kinds of stakeholders.
Our mission at the World Food Forum is to support and empower the next generation to create a better food future for the world. And to do that, we need a language that all people can use, a visual language like this.
I think I speak on behalf of everyone. What an amazing project that you guys have put on. We're really, really, really happy that we have the opportunity to working with you. And Douglas, Alberto, I think that you will have an event dedicated to the food icons, right?
That's correct. Tomorrow at 1300 CET on Tuesday, we're going to do an hour session where we're going to introduce you to the people behind Foodicons, the design experts, the designers themselves from around the world, and they're going to share with you what they've done to date. But you know, Matteo, while we've been working on this a year, and we have icons for everything from biodiversity to food waste, this is still very much the beginning, because what we're going to be doing and talking about tomorrow is that this is going to be your language. We're going to be announcing tomorrow that this is going to be a tool that we're going to provide to the World Food Forum and hopefully build with you so we can grow out a shared language that really explains your aspirations, your ideas, your innovations in a way that the world can more easily understand. Alberto?
Douglas, thank you very much. And I think, as I said, I speak on behalf of everyone where we thank you for this opportunity to working together. Most importantly, join us all tomorrow at 13-hour Central European time for the Foodicons. But I see that Massimo Torero, the chief economist of FAO, wants to come in. Massimo, you have the floor. We cannot hear you though. Can you please unmute yourself?
I still don't learn, you know. Thank you to you all, and thank you for this huge initiative. As Douglas says, this is a revolution in terms of language. My dream here is that we link this to Codex Alimentarius, and that we link and we create this language because it's breaking a barrier of entry that we have in all the digital world. So honestly, the youth have to work with us in this crowdsourcing and creating a technical certification like they have designed that will allow us to have such a breakthrough. This is a real breakthrough. I don't know what Douglas think and Alberto, but for me, this is a real breakthrough if we push it properly. Thank you.
I think, Maximo, we're just excited where we see all the different uses. Even though the challenge isn't over yet, people all over the world have begun to use them. It obviously, we've learned that we have, I think, created something that addresses a need that I think we all have. We have to find a common language that really represents our greatest aspirations. In advance of the event tomorrow, we'd like to give you an opportunity to become involved. There's going to be many ways that the World Food Forum community can be involved. One, They could be on the editorial committee, actually governing how it grows, how new terms are added. 2, you might be a designer who wants to start designing icons. We have an entirely well-oiled machine here for bringing designers in so that they can contribute. 3, you might be a food system expert. You might say, you know what, I'm very interested in food loss and food waste, and I want to be on the committee that chooses the new terms that are added each year. Just for regenerative agriculture alone, we had 150 terms. For agrobiodiversity, over 100 as well. So we've just scratched the surface of what's possible. So what I've done is I put in the chat a link to a form that you can actually fill out in advance of the event to say how you'd like to be involved, how you think you might be able to contribute, because this is really going to be, at the end of the day, a language that you own, that you create, that you maintain, that you build, and then ultimately that you use to explain what you're doing to advance food systems.
Thank you, Douglas. Thank you, Alberto. And also thank you, Massimo, for really setting the stage and making us understanding the potential there are behind the food econs. And great work. And again, this invitation for everybody to join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central European time for the dedicated event, the food econs. Rachel, let me give you back the floor.
Awesome. Wow, I am just completely overwhelmed and astounded by the innovation and just the desire to be so inclusive. We are an incredibly visual generation, as you all know. And so, boy, this is just very timely and applicable and right. Thank you so much. Perfect fit. All right. So that was pretty amazing. Thank you so much for that. We are going to hear from 2 more members of our team. The first one is Yugratna Srivastava, who is based in India. She's part of the Plant for the Planet and global coordinator of the Children and Youth Major Group, MGCY of UNEP. And also Jenna, who is the director of the Young Professionals for Agricultural Development and a co-lead in writing the Youth Mechanism. Welcome, Yugratna and Jenna, ready for you to blow us away. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Rachel. And I would like to hand the floor to my colleague Yugratna, who will take the introduction to the Zero draft. And then I will come in at the last portion and support with a couple more interventions. So with that, over to you, Yugratna.
Thank you very much, Jenna, and thank you, Rachel, for the succinct moderation that you have been undertaking. And big hello to the youth organizations that are here from different parts of the world. Also for those that are waking up in time zones that are, late in the night or early in the morning for them. We truly recognize this, especially as this is voluntary work for many youth groups involved, including for all the youth that have actually engaged in the preparatory process, and those that you heard from earlier, they have all been contributing as volunteers. So I just wanted to acknowledge that aspect, that we are all here in the spirit of being together, and thank you so much for the great work that is taking place. I am, as Rachel mentioned in her kind introduction, elected focal point for the Major Group for Children and Youth on environmental governance, and we act in an independent capacity where we prioritize that youth inputs, especially from diverse fora, are heard and reflected in the processes of the UN, in multilateral processes, and also at the same time, we have this co-leadership kind of model. Of course, the opportunity and the space that has been provided by RBAs in the context of World Food Forum is unprecedented. It has never happened before that such a huge focus on youth has been given, especially from a communications and advocacy perspective, internationally, to contribute on the policy discourse. And we are very hopeful that this is something that would further continue and work forward. Then in order to have discussions on this topic specifically, we do have a short PowerPoint that we would like to share with you. For some reasons, I'm not able to share. Okay, let me share my full screen. I hope you're able to see it, if possible. So this presentation, as Rachel highlighted earlier, is focused on how do we, actually develop a youth engagement model with the World Food Forum, right? So we have heard the narrative that World Food Forum is youth-led. It is led by young people, and it is taking into perspectives, the account into perspectives of youth. So how do we actually, in fact, do that? So the first thing that I would like to perhaps, maybe I'm on the request, is that I know that there are many youths that are joining as attendees in this, and some of them I actually recognize. I see Adele Rocato from GEO for Youth team that is here, from UNAP, a very dear colleague, and many more colleagues that are here. As you know, this is a two-way interaction, and we would like this to be a two-way interaction. So in case you are interested to actually be promoted as a panelist and engage like in this dialogue as well, please either raise your hand or write in the chat or in Q&A, so we can actually promote you to a panelist, and you're not just, one-way attendee. We are able to have a dialogue with you, and this is really very essential. Maybe I'll wait for a couple of seconds for people to raise hands or just mention in the chat or Q&A that they want to be promoted as a panelist for further discussion on this topic, because that interaction as well from their side. Okay, Jenna, just confirming you can hear me clearly and see my screen, right? Like the big presentation. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was just concerned. Once again, this is an invitation. If you want to be promoted as a panelist, just write in the Q&A or chat, and we'd be very glad to add you like that. So, to begin with, and the youth space in the context of food security and food systems comprises various aspects and structures, of course. If we look at what the landscape of this space is, there are, of course, various youth constituencies that operate on thematics of food systems. For example, those that are created by member states themselves, such as the Civil Society Mechanism Youth Working Group for the CFS, MGCY, HLPF, SDG2 Working Group, from which Pramisha is here with us. You also have groups that specifically follow climate change process, like the Youngo Agriculture Working Group, Indigenous Youth Constituency, the Global Indigenous Youth Caucus, youth groups and organizations that are partners with their own-based agencies like Youth Alliance for Zero Hunger or YPARD, and many other organizations that are already working in cooperation. The youth networks of RBAs themselves, which are comprising staff of their own-based agencies, right? So FAO Youth Committee, WFP Youth Networks, these are networks of staffers of the UN and not necessarily civil society when it comes to, youth engagement. And then, of course, there are specific programs and plans, strategies. Some of them also have reporting requirements when they're approved by the member states. So those are, some of the to outline that we are looking at a space which is very, in that sense, not just complex, but also diverse, right? And then diversity is often seen as a strength in multilateral space. So what we are looking at the moment is very much, in line with the work that is happening across the UN system, and how do we then have more coherence in this, as was also pointed out by some colleagues earlier. Of course, the topic of coherence itself, is not addressed in the UN for the first time. We have had discussions on the topics of coherence and the topics of how to bring groups together that work on a similar topic. More notably, if we look at the Youth Task Force of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, 2021 to 2030, which is a designated space for young people to feed into the governance processes of ecosystems, has been designed in a model that brings together relevant youth constituencies, mechanisms, networks, in order to feed into the decade. Similarly, if you look at the Stockholm Plus 50 youth engagement that is being designed, I don't want to go into details because some of these are also technical aspects, but the point is, how do we drive coherence? How do we drive a system which is fit for purpose, and also not do soul searching, that, oh, there is no youth mechanism to contribute to food systems, because there already is. What we are exploring at the moment is how we can bring certain networks and galvanize joint action and synergies together, and so that the leadership of the Rome-based agencies, the member states, therefore, are receptive to what is happening. Moving on, very quickly, the overview, if you look at the structures of the World Food Forum itself in this big picture, there are, of course, different structures in the World Food Forum. There is an advisory group, which is like the main body of the World Food Forum, which contributes and kind of takes important decisions and involved in the steering. We also heard about interagency coordination group of World Food Forum, which is a network that brings together several UN agencies. We have Champions Network, Young Scientists Group, Global Networks and Cooperation Partners. And then, the question comes that, okay, where exactly are then the youth constituencies that are active in this space, but then are also linked with different cooperation partners, global partners? How are they involved in the work of World Food Forum? What is that designated space for them to be involved, and not just be involved as beneficiaries or stakeholders, but actually be involved in driving the work of the World Food Forum together. If it is powered by global youth, then a lot of decisions, including the most important decisions, have to be with the global youth as well. So, in the spirit of, as the UN Youth Strategy says, with and for young people. So, I believe that is, something that we have looked at in determining this. And again, not to replicate the existing youth constituencies, but to provide a space where they can be brought together, including a space where youth that are not, as such part of the UN system before, also have a space to contribute, because it cannot be just that, oh, you are, youth constituencies, so bring them together and that is done. But we also need to think beyond in a creative manner. I will not go into this detailed presentation because it has a lot of slides, but just to provide an analysis that there are various youth structures in the UN system, as I mentioned earlier, that we can look at when it comes to a specific analysis and work on joint action. If specifically looking at the United Nations Youth Strategy, some of the good parts are marked in green. Places which can, improved are marked in yellow. So for instance, what was not so great in the Generation Equality Youth Task Force of UN Women? Well, the UN basically selected all the young people they want to have involved, and that's not self-organized youth engagement. But at the same time, the Generation Equality Youth Task Force has youth representatives which are in the board of the Generation Equality Program itself. So they are able to contribute to the decision-making of UN Women's program. Similarly, if you look at the UN Youth Strategy itself, UN Youth Strategy provides some model where actually a lot of work that happens in the UN Youth Strategy, such as via task teams, are led by young people and youth jointly. So there is, in that sense, a space to be jointly programming a lot of work. There are 3 sort of core partners in the UN Youth Strategy. 2 of them are on invitation basis. One of them is an ex officio partner when it comes to who has a seat at the table. Similarly, also looking beyond social dimension, if we look at the humanitarian, peace and security and health dimension, then there are some very good models that, that are there, and some models where there can be improvement, right? So for instance, Compact for Humanitarian Action is a World Food Forum kind of a network for humanitarian aspects. It also brings together the relevant UN partners, groups, and youth organizations together. It is actually co-chaired by youth. So youth are involved in the steering of the whole Compact process on this. Then if we, see, for example, what happens with the Coalition on Youth Peace and Security, it is also a very important mechanism. And this actually interfaces directly with the UN Security Council in many ways. However, the co-chairing is being done by one single youth organization, which is of course networks based, but then it begs a question that how can we bring more diversity of youth organization, involved in the co-chairing of this. And I don't want to go into details, but again, this is, these are all very progressive models. All of them have things that can be improved, but then, things that can be better. So, in any youth engagement model in general, these are, some things that can be incorporated. And then there are some things that we should be careful about, that it should not be, reflected. So for example, how, handpicking should not be done of young people. It should also not be expected that grassroots and informal and minority groups should be then asked to be represented through, other networks, that, oh, if you're an indigenous youth, we very much welcome you to participate, but then, oh, you need to, cooperate with this international youth mechanism for blah, 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 in order to be represented. No, they need designated seat at the table. And if it's not there, then we need to create it. And that's very much, the spirit in which we have approached developing sort of a model for when it comes to how youth should interact with the World Food Forum. Then also, if you look at some of the good things that should be there, we are of course, talking about strengthening the mandate of existing groups, building on existing structures, and talking about, youth co-leadership and diversity, and among other things, which are self-explanatory when it comes to term. So what does it mean for youth mechanism in general on World Food Forum? And I invite Jenna to please lead this section. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rugratna. I think that's really valuable background information to have the context of what has happened in youth spaces and UN spaces in general, so that we really keep that in mind as we go forward with this goal of having a really inclusive youth mechanism where young people can get involved, raise their voices, and also have that independence and that agency that I think everyone here is committed to, and to make sure that that really gets set out in this youth mechanism. So if I can ask to go to the next slide, please, then I will just give a brief overview of what's been laid out in this zero draft. And what I would like to emphasize in this zero draft for this youth mechanism is that it needs your feedback and it needs your construction work on it, because this is really the only intent with this zero draft, is to have done some of that heavy lifting of writing a document and putting those words and thoughts down on paper. And now we're really needing that feedback from the audience, from the youth groups who want to be involved, to make sure that that intent is there and that they catch some of those things that maybe we overlooked when we were drafting this. And so that's really the intent with this session, with the forum. So please give your feedback either here through the question and answer, through the chat, ask your questions, ask to be promoted to a panelist, and ask your question verbally, so that way you can also have the simultaneous interpretation. That was just a reminder to me to speak a little bit more slowly, so that we have our great interpreters here, that they're able to do their really good work. And if you would like, also give that feedback in written form as well. So a few moments ago, we gave the link to the form for the chat, through the chat. And so that's also an opportunity. If you're more comfortable with giving written feedback on this youth mechanism, please do that through that form. If you want to do both, please do that, because this is supposed to be all about a collective process of forming this together. So with that, I would like to just lay out what we have put in this zero draft document. And on the next slide, it shows these two governance bodies that are laid out. If I can just ask to advance to the next slide, that would be fantastic. And there's there's two main bodies: the assembly, which is consisting of everyone every youth group that wants to be involved, and then the focal points group. And the focal points group is imagined like a steering committee that really sets that strategic direction for the group. And we decided that maybe it should be called a focal points group because we really wanted to represent that collective nature of the group and that strategic nature of the group, that it's not representing any one individual, perhaps me as YPARD trying to promote YPARD's agenda through that group. No, it should be about the success of the body together and about that collective action. And so that's part of the idea of this focal points group. If you look in the document also, then there's language about regional representation that should be ensured by the focal points group, gender balance, and also a range of thematic focuses and person-centric and minority group stakeholder groups that are all represented through that focal points group. So please take a look in the document, make sure that how it's written there, you really feel like that represents you or your fellow constituencies that you work together with, to make sure that that intent is there, and come with your feedback there. Then the focal points group also has 2 co-chairs, right? And that's to help coordinate the work. And so that the co-chairs should also represent regional balance, and it should also be on a rotating basis so that no one youth group or constituency or region has the co-chair position for too long or dominates that group. And so that is the intent with the co-chairs and the co-chair language laid out in the 0 draft. Then, thank you for going to the next slide. You anticipate my talking points correctly. Then there's the assembly. And so this is the body of any interested youth-led, youth-focused organization and advocates, right? So membership in the assembly should be a non-competitive process, and really any youth group who wants to be involved, as long as they meet the criteria that the assembly has set out together for its members, should be open. And the assembly is really the body, like a general assembly, that is making decisions on important substantive matters for the Youth Action Assembly. Then, of course, we have a way for those who may not be youth, but are still really enthusiastic about supporting youth, about being involved, to get involved. And this is the Open-Ended Partners Working Group. And so this is a structure serving any civil society organizations, UN agencies, partners of UN agencies, and also other members of the WFF Global Network, cooperation partners who really want to support the youth mechanism. And so this working group in the language in the document is envisioned as a multiplier group and an open network for joint action points. So we also have the WFF advisory group. And so this would be that the youth mechanism can participate then in the strategic direction for the WFF advisory group by participating in it. And so that representation is also built into the document so that the Youth Action Assembly is working together within itself, but then also communicating with other structures of the WFF, for example. We also envision that type of layering also with the interagency coordinating group, so that a meeting of the interagency coordination group should be open to youth focal points to participate, but that youth could also co-chair that interagency coordination group as a youth co-chair. And these nominations could be done through the champions group, young scientist group, and etc. should be done also in consultation with the youth mechanism, in consultation with the WFF Secretariat, so that these bodies are working together to create a shared vision and a shared product. So in summary, because it's a lot of information, please take a look into the documents and take a look into that summary document as well. Give your written feedback, ask your questions in the chat. We're very open. That there are two main governance bodies: the Youth Focal Points Group, which has 2 co-chairs, the Assembly, which is open to all members, and then the Open Partners Working Group, which is for supporters of youth to work together on joint action. And then, of course, the representation of the mechanism in key structures of WFF and also other appropriate platforms. So with that, I'd love to thank you for your attention. Thank you so much. And I'd love to take questions. Ugratna and I would love to take questions about any aspect of the governance document. And then after the questions portion, of course, also take your feedback.
Wow, that was super thorough. Thank you, ladies, for that. Really, really appreciate it. Wow, I actually have a question for you too, already. So how did the youth mechanism come about and why? We want to hear about the history. Story time.
Yes, I can give a brief overview and then maybe Ugratna can complement that. So what the idea was with the Youth Action Assembly is that there is a governance mechanism for young people, that it's really living up to this idea that it's by youth for youth. And that's really how the Youth Action Assembly was born, because it needs to have a structure. That needs to be laid down so that rules of engagement are clear to all parties so that you can engage.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, to complement that, Rachel, I believe, this came from the identity of the World Food Forum itself, that the decision, that was there in the March from the FAO Youth Committee was that World Food Forum would be a structure powered by global youth. So how do we make that slogan into reality, right? So how exactly is it then powered by global youth in a manner that it is meaningful, in a manner that it is listening to missions where youth are then picked by the WFF, and this doesn't imply any this is not just about WFF, right? This is also about youth, that how much ownership are young people willing to take. So sometimes it needs to be, it's a joint approach, if I may say that, where how are youth interfacing with this, and how are we doing that in terms of building on from existing networks. So we don't want to create a new constituency. We are trying to create a structure which is agile and that brings together the existing mechanism and make it fit for purpose for World Food Forum, much like it happened in the decade, much like it happened in other spaces as well. And it actually strengthens the constituencies, if you ask my honest opinion on what they do globally. Yeah.
Fantastic. If anyone else has questions, you can drop them in the chat or the Q&A section. I see one in Chinese, which I just dropped in Google Translate. I'm not sure if it's completely accurate, but it says, how do we participate in ecological restoration? According to Google. Interpreters, you can let us know because, but go ahead.
Yeah, I can take that one, Rachel. So, in the context of, and I'll try to speak also moderately so it is well interpreted for our Chinese colleague. So in the context of UN in 2019 March, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution that declared the decade from 2021 to 2030 as the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration to prevent, halt, and reverse the degradation of ecosystems worldwide. And this was the UNGA tasked FAO and UNEP as the custodians of the decade in order to implement and take the work forward on it. Youth have been engaged with the decade basically since 2019 itself in various consultations processes. And we, in December last year, so a couple of months ago, the Decade Coordination Group, which is chaired by directors from FAO and UNEP, took decision to have a youth task force in the decade upon our requests and advocacy 2020. And then we spent better half of this year developing the TORs and the procedures for youth task force. And right now we're actually in the conclusion stage of selections, and we're hoping the first meeting to be convened sometime this month. We received over 500 applications from all over the world, and also nominations for youth to be part of the task force, and that process, is underway. And if I may say, we have seen a lot. There was a private sector. There is a consortium of certain private sector and fossil fuel companies that actually wanted to coordinate the youth engagement in restoration and decade. And that was something that a lot of youth constituencies got together and said, no, we will, and that's not youth engagement. And that is something, we did in context of restoration. And I believe such spaces are also important when it comes to food structures, so that the participation and engagement of youth is happening in an independent and public process, and not co-opted by groups that do not have best interest on climate and environment in their heart, including hydrocarbon companies, fossil fuel companies, or private sectors whose visions and missions are not aligned with the work that is happening in context of food and agriculture spaces, and for youth space to be free of those influences and being able to operate in an independent way. Thank you.
Fantastic. And I see a reminder in the chat to every single person here. If you would like to speak the way we're speaking, or have your video on, mic on, we can promote you to panelists. You just have to raise your hand and send a message telling us what you would like to talk about. Yay, she said thank you. Very well answered, everyone. We have one last question. It's from Nina Coates. She says, hi, Jenna and team. Is there an application form for a proposal to create a working group on a thematic topic? Sorry if this was covered in the presentation.
Yes, so I would answer that. I think earlier we put in the chat the interest form for participation in working groups, and it's not only participation, but also co-creation of those working groups. So if you're interested on working on the governance document, of course, that would be one area. But if you and a group of other people say, I want to have a thematic working group on ecosystem restoration, for example, that is also completely within the realms of possibilities. It all depends on you and the group. And so I'll just pull that form and link out of the chat and put it back in the chat as well for that. And it'll also come up again later in the presentations for that opportunity to sign up, and eventually be posted on the World Food Forum website as well.
Awesome, awesome sauce. Thank you so much. Ladies, you are amazing. We appreciate you so much. Thanks for your great work. So, all right, as we're also seeing again, if you want to share your views, just go ahead and raise your hand. We will promote you to panelists. I want to bring back Matteo and Maria really quickly, who are going to present a very, very cool video to you on food system transformation. Welcome back, Matteo and Maria.
During the break, but we didn't have a break, so I wanted to bring it back. And while we wait for the question to still come and the engagement, we thought that maybe we can show the video. So this is a video that is made from youth transforming the world's food system. It's a very interesting standpoint from young people and what they think, and it is the food system and how we can transform it. It's made by our colleague in FAO, the work on the food system assessment, which is a great exercise and technical exercise that is done at FAO. And actually there will be a side event specifically on that. But yeah, if you can bring up the video, we can show it, and then we'll give you back the floor, Rachel, Yugratna, and Jenna.
System is basically the entire system from getting the seeds to growing the food.
Just give us a second. bring the volume up again, okay? This is the beautiful of the live event. Let's see if it works. Sound. Lizanne, I remember that you also have this video on. Did you download it by any chance so you can share it?
Yeah, but I also hear your sound. I don't know if others also hear it. For me, I hear it very well. So
so it's awesome. It's okay. We know the video. We don't have to hear it.
We couldn't hear it, so we bring it back again. Okay, thank you for telling us. All right, enjoy.
System is basically the entire system from getting the seeds to growing the food to distributing it to your local supermarket or wherever you get your food from.
C'est pas juste sur ce qu'on mange, c'est d'où viennent les aliments que nous mangeons, qui les prépare, est-ce qu'il y a des transports qui sont inclus et tout ça. Donc c'est tous les processus depuis la terre, je dirais, jusque dans notre assiette.
I believe, yes, we are eating poorly and very poorly. We are not educated as much, especially to read food labels. Our generation believe in ready done, so whatsoever is on the shelf, that's what they're going to get.
Soil amendments for people to start growing food again, and that's a big problem because now we have pollution from landfills, and we have people who are currently starving or not having the right amount of food or nutrients in their diet because we're not thinking about a proper way to use these food systems.
When you look at the agriculture sector in Nigeria, we have over 70% of women playing in that space, and we don't really have innovative policies attending to the needs of these smallholder farmers who are women.
Peut-être qu'ils pensent qu'ils sont mal payés avec le métier agricole.
Mais ils ne sont pas pauvres, ils sont plus riches que nous.
Au Sénégal, on avait remarqué que sur le marché des produits pour bébés, 100% de l'offre était importée sur la gamme Petit Pou, pour bébé. Alors qu'on a des ressources agricoles qui sont très riches sur le plan nutritionnel, on s'est dit pourquoi ne pas les transformer et de proposer une offre locale adaptée aux besoins locaux, adaptée également aux habitudes de consommation, qui permettra d'améliorer l'état de santé nutritionnelle des enfants.
I believe that we need to focus more on packaging and marketing.
C'était l'utilisation des plastiques à usage unique, planter des arbres où que vous êtes.
Je pense que pour avoir un avenir meilleur et une meilleure nutrition, c'est aux jeunes qui sont l'avenir de prendre les initiatives et de faire bouger les choses.
You can do it. You can create a brighter future.
It was inspiring, right? And tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., I want to invite all of you that are interested in food system transformation and how young people are transforming the food system, sorry, at a side event organizing at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning CAT. Rachel, Jenna, Ugratna, let me give you back the floor and thank you. I thought it was a good moment to make a little bit of a break. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that. Jenna and Ugratna, welcome back. Ladies, thank you so much for your work. So anyone with questions, anyone who would like to be promoted to a panelist position, just go ahead and indicate that and we'll be happy to have you here. We really want to have as much interaction as possible. Ah, fantastic. I see Lisanne answered a question in the chat. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. Wow.
Yes, I
Fantastic.
thought that maybe I would, or invite Lisanne to come in and give her
yeah,
answer.
go ahead.
Yeah,
You can also,
go ahead.
Yeah, I can also explain a little bit also here. So the question, I will read it here. How the potential youth actions in the compendium will be linked in order to complement or implement already ongoing action plans. So that's a really good question, because as Ratna already mentioned earlier, the World Food Forum is mainly a platform to combine different actions. So to have like it is a platform. So it's not really a new constituency. It's really like combining different forces. So within the compendium, that's why we use the different documents, the different statement manifestos that were already written. So that already creates, we did not write a statement ourselves. It is mainly like a synthesis of different statements. So that already like uses the different action plans, but also as I also mentioned in the presentation, many youth around the world, I see it here, I see it in different events that already happened, also this weekend, also on Friday. Youth around the world already have amazing initiatives, projects, actions, context specific, also important to mention, because we recognize that you can make a statement worldwide, but also context specific is really important. So using these action plans actually and also learn from them is really important. So the compendium itself can be used as a tool. We can use it later, and that's something we did not do yet. But later, youth groups, youth constituencies can enter their actions that they are already doing, provide them with, for instance, a specific tool on how to copy them also in your region, or at least to start on them, so that we really can like use different actions around the world and also to complement each other on these actions, so that we can really have like a growing set of actionable solutions around the world. I think that would actually be my dream, to see that happening.
Amazing. So we have Francesca, who was promoted. Yay, we love promotions out here. Francesca, go ahead. You have to unmute.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Kazuki, Matteo, Jenna, Yugrapna. Good to see you again. I wasn't planning this, but this is a very good point in, let's say, entrenching, the different action plans which are already there. I'm not too sure about the IFAD, given that we are going also an emphasis on the Rome-based agencies. I know they have one which has been approved by the governing council bodies. I'm not too sure about the WFP. The FAO has one, which is the RIAP, the Rural Youth Action Plan. So it would be really good for the World Food Forum constituency, let's say, to spell check, those action plans. So the World Food Forum is already reporting under the Rural Youth Action Plan. But given that the body of the World Food Forum is actually growing, and there are many other youth organizations, being included in it, there is a need, to have also this implementation, so the real world taken on also by the different networks within the World Food Forum. So that they are also reporting for member countries under the RIAP in this case, but also under other youth action plans which are already existing that, I cannot speak about because I know less, obviously. So we will be sharing. I'm not too sure if I will be managing this afternoon because I have some other meetings, but I enjoyed the discussion and I'm really glad that all these points have been discussed today. So, you know, that there is a further sharing of these different action plans so that there is a further close implementation of different actions which have been proposed and accepted by member countries, but also by other UN entities.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you all, also to the organization team.
Please also indeed make sure that these documents written by youth come to our way, because then we can indeed use them and yeah, see how we can implement them also in the compendium itself. Thank you.
Awesome. Jenna, I see you wanted to say something. You can go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Francesca, for coming in with your intervention and this really true will to coordinate together. And I think that is from our side also completely reciprocated. And hopefully that also shows through the open-ended partners working group, or that was kind of the idea with that, to institutionalize that cooperation between these agencies, important actors, different strategies. So that's the hope. And yeah, really welcome feedback on that as well. So thank you so much.
Awesome. I see some hands raised. Excited for that.
Rachel, I'd still like to answer Francesca's point, if that is okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Of course, you Grandma. Of course.
Yeah, no, I mean, I believe that's a very significant point, and nice to see you as well, Francesca. Good morning. I agree. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, the RBAs will have to report back to their donors and member states on how they're implementing the projects, and those have to be in line with, you know, the program priorities. So I believe there could be certain mapping done of the action plan that is in progress on how that feeds into or relates with specific program priorities, and at the same time also acknowledging that, you know, World Food Forum is of course coming out of RBAs, but it's actually supposed to be also beyond RBAs and bring into account youth organizations and stakeholders who would also maybe like to see new plans and activities happen. So I think it would then also be, you know, how can those activities then be part of maybe the next governing council decision of FAO, or taken up next by the member states themselves if they want to finance a specific activity. So I believe that should be done, you know, in a both way or a dual feedback process if possible. But then at the same time, when it comes to the representational aspect, of course, you know, we are not going to duplicate an intergovernmental constituency. We want to build together with them on how, you know, some of the work that is happening. So I just wanted to, you know, mention that as a point, because that's a very significant point, and we need to, you know, take that into account as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll be taking all of that into account. Thank you, Francesca, for your contributions. I would like to hear a little bit more from our attendees or audience or team members, which is what you all are. If you're here, you are part of the team already.
I also
Tell us in the chat.
One other thing, that people can also enter as a youth action volunteer. So they can just email to youth. I will put it in the chat as well for everyone, that you can enter also as a volunteer for the World Food Forum as a youth action.
Definitely. For everyone here, you can also write in the chat a positive point or any feedback you have so far on the youth mechanism. We would love to hear from you. What should go? What should stay? Let me look at some of the people who are here. I see Carlo Occhiedo. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing these names correctly. If you'd like to come up, just raise your hand. We'll promote you. Amira Saeed, who was giving such positive vibes earlier. If you'd like to come in, just raise your hand. Pritesh, Francesca. There's so many Francescas. Oh my gosh, amazing. Lambert, Nima. Hey everyone. Hey Momoka, Nina as well. If any of you would like to speak, just raise your hand and we will promote you swiftly. Let me check the chat to see if there are any new comments. Fantastic. So youth action at worldfoodforum.org if you would like to join. We would love to have you. Absolutely. So ladies, while we are waiting for everyone to work up the courage to be promoted to panelists. Oh, you Gratna, did you want to say something?
I saw a hand from Amira, and I believe she's been already
Yay!
a panelist.
I'm so happy. Amira has great vibes. Hey, Amira. Oh, you have to unmute. Perfect. Hey, Amira, we would love to hear from you. How has this been for you so far? Any questions or comments for us?
Hello. Hi, I want to say hi for all of you, Rachel, Lizanne, Maria, Jenna. You are all great, guys. You're all great. Thank you very much. I actually don't want to ask anything right now because you don't let anything to be asked. You are giving so much. I want just to thank you very much and say how much I'm so grateful for this evening and the fulfilling that you give through the knowledge, the spirit, everything you did so far till now, just like a dream come true for me, and I think for everyone is following the event. I want to thank you very much. I want to tell you that so close, inshallah, we will be together. If you allow me, of course, I will to contribute with all my potential for this great event. I will serve you with everything I know and everything I gonna to learn. Inshallah, thank you very, very much. Thank you, especially for you, Dr. Rachel. I hope to communicate so close. I love you so much. And everyone in the evening, I love so much. Thank you all. Thank you. I hope not taking so much from your time. That's all for now.
Thank you, Amira. Such good vibes. We appreciate that so
Bye.
much.
Bye from
Bye.
Egypt. Bye.
Bye from Ghana and Italy and Germany and all these places. So
From all
much
the
love.
world.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Wow,
you
that
very
means a
much.
lot. Everyone here has been working so hard, and I think we oftentimes forget that we're human. We forget about our personal life. So to see that we're making an impact and we are inspiring people, it means so much to us. So thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to jump in? Oh, Jenna, go ahead.
All right, no, I just wanted to respond to that really heartfelt intervention. Thank you so much. And yeah, I really look forward to working together and leading together, right? So love to be in touch, read those documents, give us your feedback, be in touch through the email that was just shared, through the forms. And really any way you want to be involved, express it and be in touch. And we're really looking forward to all that energy.
Love that. Love that, love that, love that. I see a comment in the chat. Chiamo de Chavez says the work that is being done by the team is great, and I believe we will be able to add value once we have gone through some of the documents shared. Yeah, agreed. We can't wait for that. It's going to be great. Would
Yeah,
all the panelists like to come back in? Go ahead.
it's quite a pack of text. At least it's quite some things to look at. So we also get that it might be useful if people just have a look at them and also give your response and your feedback later. Then we might be able also to even give some more value, as also was said. I see also in the chat someone in Chinese. I will try your
the Google Translate method. Very helpful. It's like more or less, I hope. Oh boy. Ah, nice. Wow. All right. So what I'm seeing for this Chinese translation seems very technical. Interpreters, if we get anything wrong, please let us know. It says insect resources such as yellow mealworms and barley insects can produce more high quality meat with less feed costs, ecological costs, and economic costs than conventional livestock such as cattle and sheep. So, is there anything about developing insects to solve the food crisis? Ladies, do we have anything insect related at the moment?
I'm no expert in this. I know. But maybe we can ask someone here who knows a bit more about this subject, whether there are already things happening on this specific topic.
Also, it's important to remind everyone here that none of us are experts on anything. In fact, the reason why this is so open is because we recognize that every single person has something valuable to contribute, which is why we need you to be a part of this forum. We need your expertise and your skills, your feedback, your insight. Everything is valuable. I see Amin Emadi. Hi, Amin.
you. I just thought of intervening for answering as a non-expert about the insect question, for instance. I know, for example, in the work that we're doing with the youth movement that we have, the Bites of Transformation, we are working on other, let's say, meat alternatives that we might have. Especially, we're now focused in Europe because in Europe, we do have an obstacle, and that is policies. So there are not enough policies that support the insect protein production, distribution, consumption. There are just a very few countries, less than 5 countries in the whole Europe that it's legal to sell and produce insect protein. So, and there has been a lot of competition already. I would say like it's in the pipeline in Europe that they are working a lot. Many entrepreneurs are working on insect proteins and different ways of giving taste, let's say, to insects to promote that. But the policies are the main obstacle at the moment. And there are discussions, there are negotiations being done in the EU Commission to hopefully in the very close future, we can remove this obstacle and we will be able to promote insect protein. So this was only in the case of Europe that I knew and I could share. I'm sure in different continents and in different countries, there are like different policies, but yeah, in this situation, youth are really active. They are thinking about it. But again, it's nothing that we can say it has to be FAO or IFAD. No, it has to start from ourselves. We are the ones who have to promote this and go towards, let's say, more environmentally friendly or environmentally sustainable ways of food systems. Thank you.
Wow, Amin saved us. Thank you so much. And thank you to, let me see if I can pronounce it, Lu Heli, for that question. Lisan, I see your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ugratna was first, so I will first give the floor to her.
All right. Go ahead, Ugratna.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. I'm also not a big expert on food and insects aspect, but I just wanted to acknowledge that these are, the kind of emerging issues that we want to tackle in the context of World Food Forum and really provide a space where, these discussions can be brought up. If you look at the work of FAO in Africa last year, there was issue or problem with the locusts, where FAO was very involved in tackling that issue on a programmatic level, actually addressing that locusts were not, destroying the farms and communities. And, those are important things when these discussions come up on providing space for emerging issues to be tackled and developed further. Thank you.
Awesome. Lisanne, go ahead.
Yeah, and I also saw from Giovanna in the chat, the food icons can really help. So I already envision now a food icon with a mealworm on it. So that could be really helpful, so that we don't have to, so that there will be no language barrier anymore, which I think is really helpful. Thanks, Amin, as well, also for your intervention on the policy barrier. And I think that's also something that could be yeah, within the, for instance, in the compendium, but also in the mechanism, that can be part, and that we can address there as a priority action, for instance. And also something that was mentioned, meat initiatives or meat substitutes, alternatives, also context specific, but because we also, we want to be, as said, respect all different cultures and traditions and backgrounds. So, but if it's somewhere where meat substitutes are something to consider, then it can also be a priority action. So we can think of that together, whether this is something we want to prioritize within the compendium or within the mechanism in the working group.
Absolutely. We saw this comment from, let's try this pronunciation, Gangai Swari. Would you like to come in and tell us a little bit more? Because I am very intrigued by this at this point. I'm going to be researching insects and meat for a long time today. I can already tell, but this is awesome. Yeah. Fantastic. Let me check the question and answer. Any other questions in general? Sorry, Gratna, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. 2 points. I also want to fully acknowledge that, on my statement on insects, it is really up to each community and each kind of like group to decide in their full rights of food sovereignty on what they believe is appropriate and not appropriate when it comes to food. And we, as Children and Youth Major Group, we certainly don't prescribe anything. We respect rights of everyone to self-organize and have their own rights when it comes to food sovereignty. And I just wanted to be very clear about that. The second thing is just to steer the discussion forward, because we have young people from so many different parts of the world, even if it's a small group. And I would really like to have, discussions with those that are here. So instead of, maybe I have a question for everyone that's here. What are your expectations of World Food Forum when it comes from a youth perspective, right? So what do you want to do? What are your priorities you believe that the World Food Forum should address and the youth constituency, should address in the process of what they are doing? Do you have any ideas, suggestions? What are some barriers maybe that you face as a youth organization? I know COVID has been really hard on many youth movements and groups. So do you want to share something about that? Do you want to see how we can, take some of those aspects into account? Because we want to hear from, youth that are here, and we would love to, have a discussion around that. Please, either raise your hand or post it in the chat as well.
Absolutely. Let me look at the attendees again. I see Carlo, Maria, Ahmed, Kulp, Nele, Gangai Sori, I really want to hear from you. Luca, Amping, Sonia, Anastasia, Michael, Barbara. If you'd like to come up, just raise your hand. We'd love to hear from you. Liron Mouse, Dr. Tintint, cool. Kiao, Nina.
There's a raised hand, Rachel, from Giovanna. I see. No.
Yay! Come through, Giovanna. Ooh, that was a vibe.
Sorry.
I love that sound. That was like, it's dub time. Bum, 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 bum. I was feeling it. Giovanna's in Italy, live and direct, and so there are several devices connected at the same time. But we should be able to hear her shortly.
In the discussion we were having, the barriers I can see with this consultation is, and the consensus process is that it's a long process. We have to have commitment in a very long run, in a very detailed one. It's a complex issue. It has been raised time and time again. We have experts in some domains. Sometimes we are not expert in all the domains, but it's such a holistic issue that we have to deal with as transforming the agri-food system that we need to actually commit to this. As a youth and as many other young people end up in a situation as mine, I wonder how can we get young people involved without retributing that involvement? Because the problem with that is that, as Maria mentioned a little bit earlier, the whole teams here are volunteers. The whole teams in many political involvement or change makers and activism is free time. So how do we fund this in order not to leave young people in precarity when they are actually actively trying to change the world? So I think this is one of the biggest barriers, and I'm very glad that this floor is open to so many people, also from other instances such as the FAO and other political leaders, because the question is that we want change. We see how we would like to implement change, but we also see that we have to take into account our own livelihood. And it's really complicated to be two persons and have a double life. And let's even not mention motherhood, gender issues that are always prevalent. So I will not go on this issue very much longer, but I wanted to raise this point that if we want this program, this mechanism, and any other of these well-intentioned programs to work, that we make them sustainable to sustaining the livelihood of young people there. Thank you so much.
Bravo.
Woo! Giovanna, mic drop, mic drop, mic drop. That was amazing. I think your words resonated with all of us. You could see the nodding like preach, right? Ugratna, it didn't resonate with you. Ugratna said no, didn't resonate with me.
Partially, right? I believe I fully agree with Giovanna on volunteer part, on environmental part, how difficult it is to have, that. But I disagree completely that we should not have consensus-based process, because that is something we fully support and believe in. Otherwise, we crush the minorities if you don't have consensus, right? Few rich, resourceful groups, including UN agencies themselves, can actually come and say, this is what is good for you, this is what is not good for you. So it is very important to have a consensus-based process where everyone's voices are being heard and a space is being provided for that. And that is something I want to be very clear from youth constituency side, that we are not, in a space where some groups can shepherd young people that, oh, this is how you should do youth engagement. No, young people have to decide that in a manner that is, more comfortable to them. And by the way, FAO itself follows consensus modalities, Giovanna, in your governing council or CFS and other processes where member states engage. So that is something I also wanted to point out. Thank you.
I'm actually pro consensus-based process, and I am all for it. So I was just saying that they are time-consuming. That's the only issue. And by time-consuming means that when you have to be in meetings many times a day and you have to educate yourself on the matters, when you have to sustain livelihood, and that's also why I was mentioning gender issues or minority issues, and you have to be able, in order to sustain that consensus-based process, to sustain the livelihood of young people. Thank you. Rachel, we don't hear you.
Definitely muted. I said, let the record reflect that we are pro consensus-based processes. And it's okay if you aren't. That's okay. It's okay if we disagree. But yes, as for us, this is how we feel at the moment. Jenna, Lisanne, any contributions? Anyone from the FAO want to respond?
Miss Hands and Amin also.
Ooh, here they come. Hey, Jim. Hey, Amin.
Hello, hello.
Go ahead, Amin. I see your hand up and I see Jim's hand up. This is gonna get
I think
spicy.
Jim
I'm
raised his
ready.
hand first. Please, Jim, you first.
Thank you. Right. So I just want to come in on that, and that I think it's a really important aspect for us to look into how the consensus process is built into the mechanism and how we run and how we operate. And I think it's really going to be about how the values that we've put the foundations on, or at least we build the assembly on. It's very crucial, and that somehow manifests itself in the actions later on the ground, because a lot of the actions that we're hoping to see on the ground will have to be values based driven, especially in terms of inclusivity, transparency, and participatory processes. And I think that's very crucial in youth mechanisms that we want to do in food systems, especially in food systems where we see a lot of inequalities and where we see a lot of divides that somehow hinder young people from participating in decision-making processes that affect food systems. And so I think that's one of the things that I wanted to raise also, of course, which is a topic of discussion around different spaces about how we can bring this down from the global level, because we're talking at a global level, but how do we also cascade it down, make it a two-way stream to the national level, to the local level, to the hyper local level, and kind of like make that highway of communication from the global to the hyper local to the micro scale level of policy or local government units where young people can engage themselves. And I think this is where all these three documents come into play, because the documents can seem so tedious in terms of like the details and all of how it operates, but then when we look at it from an operationalization standpoint, it's really crucial, because the action compendium basically is the big picture that we see ourselves, how we fit ourselves into the big picture, and then kind of like bring it down through the action plan into our own local levels. And somehow our actions on the ground, the issues we raise, the challenges we try to address at home, and the solutions that we bring to the table have to be felt at the local level as well as at the global level. And so it has to be that two-way stream, that it's not all big picture policy, high level discussions, but also bringing it down to that ground level. And I think that discussion or that point on how do we fund it, like understanding, going back to the points that we wrote in the HLPE report, is that a lot of young people are engaged in volunteer-based initiatives in food systems. And so we really have to create those enabling environments where it's governments investing direct investments into jobs or creating jobs for young people, pushing for policies that will empower or at least increase the minimum wage of young people in these spaces, or at least provide mechanisms that cover the cost of high risk jobs in agriculture. When you're a young person, when I did a documentation of a coconut farming family, one of the sons of the farmer was doing very hard work in taking out the husk of the coconut, but working with very sharp edges on machines. And so how do we protect young people's health, welfare, and safeguard, and all of these? It's a mix of policies, it's a mix of interventions, it's a mix of initiatives from public, from civil society to private, to micro, small, medium enterprises, and even academia and research. And so this space, the Youth Action Assembly, has to be that table where all of us young people come together, bring our solutions in, and look at how we can mainstream the process, no matter how time consuming it may be, but really look into how it can be very participatory, very inclusive, because this is a food system that we're all part of and all are affected in. So yeah, just wanted to bring that to the table for the discussion. Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks, Jim. Just for the discussion, just wanted to drop these gems. No big deal. I love it. I see Lisan wants to respond to you, but I know Amin had his hand up. So go ahead, Amin.
Thank you. I don't know how much time we have for the discussion, but I would like to talk about that discussion again that was brought up about like the time-consuming discussions that we might have for consensus. I believe personally one of the main reasons most of these discussions are time consuming, especially at high political levels, are because of the lack of transparency. I think the spaces that we begin these discussions are spaces that are not maybe the right place or not the safest space for the representatives of the countries, for the politicians to be discussing about food systems. That brings lack of transparency, and lack of transparency will just add a never-ending confusion and just talking and no one basically understanding each other, what they want to talk about. For example, for the youth, again, about an example that I personally had is to just bring people in a safe place. We connect at a human level without any suit and ties, without any luxury, without any delegation and blah, blah, blah. We do not need this. The current problems that we do have in the food systems in the world are problems that we are having. More than 700 million hungry people every day. These are human issues. We cannot fix these with time-consuming discussions, with being in a privileged state and talking about our own realities. We have to address these as soon as possible and as fast as we can. So we need to come to this environment. We need to have dialogues in spaces that we can connect at a human level. Regardless, we are youth or we are politicians. If we are politicians, if we are representing our countries, we should not be in a place that we are privileged and we are just sharing the opinions that are based on our own realities, or we are reflecting things that are, I don't know, based on many different benefits that we might be taking advantage of or not for our countries. There might be many complicated reasons connected to that, but we're talking about food systems. We're talking mostly about the problems that the people, the farmers, the small family farmers are facing, which are the core of our agricultural systems and our food systems. But this approach is not right. We need a bottom-up approach. We need to start the discussions. We need to start the spark from the farmers, from the stakeholders, and bring this up. And then at the end, the politicians would be only the person who is going to reflect all of this collective discussion. Although now this is not happening. The sounds, the voice, they're not being any voices given to those stakeholders, and only the representatives in the majority of the countries are speaking about that. I have worked in the FAO myself. I have seen the discussions in the General Council. I've seen the discussions between the permanent representatives of the countries, and it is ugly. We have to accept that there are many implicit ways of talking, that there are many ways that they are filtering words, they are not speaking with transparency, and this is an issue that we need to fix if we want to fix our food system issues. So sorry for my transparency. No, I'm not sorry for my transparency. Sorry for the long answer. And I would wish to be even more transparent. So yeah, I don't know if I really hit the spot, but I was just trying to explain that we need to be more transparent, and we need spaces that we feel space to speak about everything at a humane level, not being afraid to be judged for any opinion. And yeah, just go forward with this. So I hope as youth, in the documents that we are creating and the discussions that we will have very soon in the future, we will start them in these kind of spaces, not the current dysfunctional spaces that are working in our political systems. Thank you.
Whew. I mean, you didn't hold back at all. I'm here like sweating, slightly sweating. I feel uncomfortable. For those who have to answer to you, thank you for holding us all accountable, and thank you for your honesty and your passion. That's exactly what we need, and that's exactly the reason why we are here today, why we have been able to achieve all that we have so far. Less talking, more action. Let's go. We're ready. So, listen.
Yeah, actually, I don't have too much to add, but first of all, I just want to say, I mean, thank you. I wanted to explain the same, actually, that we need a more understanding and human-centered like discussion, so that people have the feeling that they are comfortable like sharing their feelings. And that's what I also think I can give an example on this. For instance, I had a conversation where someone from Extinction Rebellion, I don't know if you heard, yeah, they were hosting it, and they started with the conversation with like, how is everyone feeling? how are you sitting here? And like, and then you start already with like expressing your feelings. And I think that human-centered vision, I think, is what sometimes is a bit missing. And that's feeling that you can share your ideas also, that you feel comfortable doing that. So that's a bit, yeah, on that. And what I see, because I don't have very much experience with like UN or FAO processes, but what I see on a local level when I'm in my own city, I see also that there's sometimes a little bit hard understanding between like the local initiatives, people working very hard voluntarily, and for instance, governments and municipalities. This morning there was also a session on municipalities, how to connect them. Often what I see is that they think they cooperate, but then there's a sort of a misunderstanding what was asked or what would be wanted and what actually is being done. So I think that connection, and I think youth can really be a sort of a bridge between the different levels, and also create an open space for that, so that we can make ourselves heard, but also create a connection between like the engagement. And I hope that I hear, for instance, this morning on youth councils and youth constituency within a municipality, for instance. I hope that this can sort of create a bridge between the two, and also create a bridge on understanding where we come from. And I hope that, for instance, policymakers or people in line with making like choices take a moment to go to a farmer, work with him, and understand why they're doing what they do without talking about them. For instance, we now say, yeah, you need youth to be in a spot with you because you want to make them heard, but also if you want to understand a farmer and make decisions on them or about them or on someone else, a fisherman, or instance, go to them, work with them, and understand what they do. That's also, I think, very important in engagement. That's just what I wanted to add to Amin, but it was already great. And I see Giovanna also raising her hand.
Yes, Giovanna, you're up next. Giovanna?
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to intervene in the different aspects of or democracies or decision-making processes. They are complicated in the sense that there are many stakes, there are many stakeholders, and I don't think that changing the world will ever be an easy feat. If it was, we would have known and we would have just solved the problem in a 5-minute meeting, but it's not. So I agree that transparency and those discussions are fundamental, but the problem with making something complicated easy to understand is that it takes involvement, a lot of will. And I think that the FAO also gave this platform a reality through a lot of will to make it a reality and to gather us all together. And we wouldn't have been able to do this without others supporting us. So I just want to bring back the discussion that it's not us vs them vs other systems. We are all part of a big ecosystem of stakeholders at many different levels. And we have to take into account that to cooperate, we have to have support mentors, we have to have support through funds and to bring stakeholders together. My point is that multilateralism is taking another shape today. International relations are shaped more and more with the civil society and not top-down as it has been for the past. And the many different experiences that we are making through the World Food Forum, through what was mentioned before, for instance, the Gender Equality Forum initiatives, are so many new ways of involving those that haven't had a voice in these spaces before. We have to take down the spaces of the important topics of discussion shouldn't be the only and sole contribution of the privileged one who have the time to discuss them, but to really share it across the board, across the frontiers, across all the different flux. And to quickly recode something that Jim has said before, I would say that those institutions we are creating now, because there will be at some point structure, organization, institution of some sort, have to have at their core that they are aggressively inclusive. Because the problem is not to have a diversity and inclusion policy that is just a CSR prospect somewhere in a folder, but something that we actively live out of. And I think the beauty of the World Food Forum and the processes we are creating right now is that we are bringing into them the intent for them to be transparent, for them to be inclusive, and for voices to be heard. And I hope that the mentors and the ecosystem around us will see the intent we are putting in here, and will also sponsor it, promote it, bring it forward for us, for our action or proposition of action or solution to not be only that, but to be a reality, not for only us, but also all the people who will be beneficiary in the end, long term, now for us youth, but also the future generation youth who will have to live with them and the decision we take now. So prospect 2030, but let's be aggressively inclusive and aggressively intentful and having a will to bring this change and bring our ecosystem with us.
That was the closing.
And bring our ecosystem with us. Thank you very much.
It was the effects. It was too powerful, Giovanna. We couldn't handle it. You, Gratna, go ahead.
Thank you, Rachel. First I want to start with Amin said. I also have the reality of sitting in subcommittee meetings almost every week that take place between member states and India process. And I very much relate to when you say that, sometimes the progress can be slow, sometimes, they talk in different terms and ways how they're represented, but and we try to influence those discussions a lot, and those bureaucratic caveats are always there. I just want to talk about because I believe this conversation itself is an example of how much we need to do better when we have to engage young people. So especially if you look at the World Food Forum itself, right? So the World Food Forum started, or decision was taken in March, and it was only, I believe, around August where youth organizations were actually involved to shape the discussions of UN agencies that were involved in leading this discussion, which is not as such informed by youth directly. And that is why it is very essential that now the discussions that are taking place from this perspective are including young people, and which is very much the spirit of the World Food Forum and also the leadership of FAO that we have seen. I also want to tackle the point of privilege. I can assure you that none of the youth that are here are coming from a privileged background. We don't earn a 5,000 euro per month salary. We are volunteers alongside our paid jobs in the schools that we are actually doing this on a volunteer basis, mostly coming from middle class families and other spaces. We don't actually have the privilege of, sitting in FAO buildings to work on this. We are coming from, middle class families and lower class families and youth that are involved. You heard Pramisha earlier in the session. Pramisha's first time to travel outside her country was through a COP process that took place in 2017, and it was first time she was engaged. She didn't actually have bank account to apply for a visa application, so didn't I when those things were taking place. So you can be assured that we are young people coming from grassroots. I am aware as a young woman from Global South of these problems and challenges that come from young people. I come from a family that also cannot afford me to fly outside my country, right? So we are bringing bring those perspectives. And I'm sure it's the case with Jim and others that actually come from these communities and have suffered it firsthand. So when we say nothing about us without us, we mean it, because we have seen how hard it can be for young people to access the UN system and make space for them. And we will fight this, and we'll fight you, and we'll fight them, we'll fight everyone to it needs in order to create an inclusive space. And I'm sure we have allies out there, young people, UN employees, high-level management that understand how important these issues are, that relate to this, that are committed to serving UN Charter in its true spirit, are allies of young people in doing this. And I have seen this, and I continue to believe that multilateralism is a space that will tackle this. And this quote that I was saying, we'll fight you, we'll fight them if needed for inclusion, is actually from a colleague from Asia Pacific that I was quoting. So it's not my own words on this. And I just wanted to be very, very clear on the privilege aspect, especially myself, coming from a very, very middle, lower class family in India, who has worked incredibly hard to facilitate where we are. And I believe that's the case with many others that are part of our working group or these discussions. If you specifically look at UN Food System Summit, there are young people as young as 18, 19 that UN didn't care about, right? Because UN often wants to have high-level important people and people that are not that aware, people that I have been in UN system, and I've heard requests from UN agencies from New York saying, oh, we want a youth that looks fair in their skin color to speak in the UN event, or that can be dressed appropriately. I was recording a session for one of the, I don't want to comment which conference, they were looking at my Zoom background, in the background that, oh, what kind of room are you sitting in? Is that how you really want to engage young people? You want to look at the background of the room they're sitting in? You want it to be pretty, you want it to be well lit, even in a virtual meeting, and you believe that is meaningful youth engagement? What about young people that don't have homes? What about young people that are living on the streets? How are you planning to incorporate them? If this is the power structure that we are, incorporating, and this is something I hope World Food Forum and also, youth constituency that are going to be engaging in this are able to stand up to and say, you have to engage the reality, and reality of young people should be done in a way that they don't feel ashamed of their identity, that they feel proud of where they are. Young people that are not engaged with you are equal stakeholders as those that are engaged with you and at the table. And I want to be, very, very vocal about this moving forward, because this is something that we have to address when it comes to privilege, when it comes to mindsets, that young people are not fully engaged. And I'll just say one final point. It makes me disappointed when I saw the youth working group of civil society mechanism, or civil society mechanism itself, was not included in the food system summit. I think that is not okay. And I believe World Food Forum has to do much better. And I'm hoping we will do much better to bring all of these voices at the table, because you don't achieve progress by excluding people for whom you're doing the progress, right? You can't change food system by preaching to the farmers. You have to bring farmers to the discussion. You have to bring those that are impacted by these things on the center of the table. And I'm really hoping that, moving forward, at least the youth dimension. I don't care about UN politics. If one branch of the FAO doesn't want to talk to another branch of WFP, that's your problem. For young people, we are going to talk across the board and engage across the board. We don't really care about your organizational politics or decision making and caveats that are there. And I think that needs to go out very, very clearly from this stage. Thank you.
Whew. Mic drop again. Mic drop again. You Gratna will fight you. And we will fight you if she is fighting you. Okay? You Gratna, we have your back. Period. Thank you so much. Oh, I mean, so we can't manage
just one
you again.
sentence. No, just one sentence.
After all of that
totally
fire
agree
with you
with
Gratna,
everything.
she nearly burnt the house down. She almost burnt the whole place down.
No,
all right,
I mean, she
ahead.
did an amazing job. I totally agree with that. I totally agree with everything Ratna said, and that is the reality that we have to fight for. Just one spoiler about one thing that she said, that we don't have the privilege to be in the building with FAO. I'll just tell you that I had the experience to be there for less than a year. You don't want to be there. It's as cold, as depressing, as very cold and depressing places. It's not really nice to be there for my memory that I have in the 2019, before the COVID pandemic was happening, very divided, not really seeing people. You have more than 1,000 people in the building, but maybe you'll just say hi to 3 or 4 people in the same organization. But what we are having in mind with the youth committee, with the youth movement, we want to change this. We want to break these borders. We want to bring people together. So I hope the same way the organization is working, we are going to work together. and hand in hand, we're going to make a change. And thank you, Gratna, for your speech. It was really, really inspirational. Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, I love how you said it was before COVID, just in case people thought it was because of COVID. No excuses. All right, everyone, thank you so much for today, for your input, for your passion. We are truly inspired by everything that you have said today, all of your comments, all of your input. We are going to review it, as I said earlier. We will be reviewing everything. If there's anything that was unanswered, it will be answered. Some of the thoughts that really resonated with me today is the need for inclusion and inclusivity, not just in speech, but in action. And it's important that we have less talk and more action because, as you all know, we've been in meetings, meetings, and meetings, and meetings. Very little is changing. So we need to focus on those changes. Additionally, what I loved about today is how we were able to make some of the most complex seeming problems very simple and very easy to comprehend and understand. So thank you, youth, for breaking it down. It's not as hard as it seems. We can do it. Also, the boundaries and the borders that used to separate us will no longer separate us. We have tools at our disposal right now that will bring us together, and that's where we need to be because the problems are collective problems. We need to be solving them together. We need to be a team. We also need to be intentional and strategic about the way we go about things. That's something that I've seen time and time again with all of these documents that are so well thought out. Thank you to everyone who has worked on them. And then lastly, there is a need for transparency and a need to understand that this is more than a forum. This is more than a meeting. This is more than a day and a time. This is more than a team. This is activism. This is activism. And the key part of activism is act. So we're going to be acting together as a collective. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we do to ensure a better food future for everyone, everywhere. We can do it, young people. Lastly, I'm going to hand it back over to Matteo, who is going to show us a video, which is sure to leave you inspired. Thank you, everyone, for today. I'm ready to work.
Thank you, Rachel. What an amazing morning this was. Thank you very much. Well, morning for us, even if for some early morning for many others. And this really shows, and you said it right, Rachel, it's about act and activism. It's also about volunteerism, as we are all volunteering here and many others that are speaking at home. Yesterday evening, I received from Nico Olivieri, which is a coach, a poet, and also the founder of the Easier Project, and our very Rainy Stern, which is a music artist and activist, a video that is called Creating from the Future. It's about poetry, it's about music, but it's also about what the World Food Forum is all about. And be ready to cry.
This is not a talk, not a workshop. These words, these sounds, like chalk on a virtual blackboard connecting us all. They're just shapes. The outer dress, the case holding something way more powerful. Because this is not a talk, it's an idea, an insight, the building block of change. Think about it. Everything comes from an insight, everything. This meeting was born as a fresh thought in someone's mind. Your presence here, my dear, is just a consequence of you being still enough to hear and know how to follow up on an idea. And so, if everything comes from an idea, a fresh thought, so will a new world. And you, young leaders and change makers, are here to be vessels and bring new ideas to life. As leaders, please show us that if we want to reimagine the planet, we must first all know where that change is going to come from. We must take action, that's for sure, but where are these actions coming from? What's their flavor? You, us, we're all key ingredients in this new world we're cooking up. Your flavor matters. How do you feel? When you look ahead, how do you feel? Can you taste the hope, the love? Or is it anger and frustration that's powering your actions? And if it is, it's okay. It's okay. I get it. We all do. We all feel that way from time to time. And I know you know that those feelings always pass. They are not who you are. And our clear, inspired mind comes back online. Just take your time to assess the flavor you're bringing to the table before adding it to the pot. So pay attention. Pay attention. No, wait, don't pay. Attention is not a commodity. It's a gift. To the world, of course, but most importantly to ourselves, because when we take our time to unwrap the gift of attention and we listen with intention, we get to create the present from the future and shape the future as a present, one that deserves to receive. We get to break all boxes, we get to shake and be awake and awaken humanity as we discover a capacity to be guided by wisdom in the moment and go beyond what looks possible right now. All it takes is to remember that you're built to connect with something bigger. Bigger. Remember that we're one step away from a world where breakthroughs are commonplace. And that step is not to be chased, it is right here, right within all of us. And it always did. It's guiding us since the day we're born if we dare to listen, to trust. Every last minute change of heart and all the times you just knew you had to play your part when everyone else was telling you to sit and wait, to stay in your place. Well, change makers, brothers and sisters, your place, it turns out, is right here. And you have the power within you to reimagine the world, co-create a new future, show us the way, invite us to join, tell us we belong on this earth. Give us permission to care because this is our place. Let's take care of it together. With love, from love. All it takes, it's an insight, a new idea. And that's why we're so blessed that you all are here. Thank you.
Wow. We are one step away from a world where breakthroughs are commonplace. Mateo, you crying for real? Oh, as you can see, we're deeply passionate and deeply invested in this because we believe that all of these things we are talking about, that a better food future is possible. If we didn't believe it, we wouldn't be here. That'd be a waste of time. So thank you everyone for being here. Mateo, Maria, if you have any closing words, you can, or if you're too emotional to speak, that's okay, I understand. I just want to thank every single person here, all of the organizations that are represented here, all of the countries that are represented here. Thank you all for being invested in making a better food future with us. We can do it. We can do it.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Sorry, I just trying to regain a little bit of composure. It was very emotional, and it has been for all of us an incredible emotional roller coaster. To get you all together to this point has been certainly tiring, but so fulfilling. And I think I speak on behalf of everyone here. But please don't forget that this is just the first morning of the Youth Assembly of the World Food Forum. In fact, our next session will start later on today at 4:00 p.m. Central European summertime. And we look very much forward to get the same energy, the same drive, and certainly even more participation that we had today. Thank you, Rachel. You have been an incredible, incredible moderator. But with you, all the people behind that has participated, supported, and get us through that. Tommaso, Maria, Giovanna, Simona, and all the Youth Action Track supporters, leaders, and volunteers.
Maybe we can give an applause for them.
Everyone's clapping for you guys. You just can't see them, okay? Everyone's clapping. Promise. Also, the compendium and next steps for the World Food Forum will be discussed at 4 o'clock Central Eastern European summertime. And the Youth Action Plan will also be presented. If you have any remarks or feedback, please use the Google Forms. And thank you to the team. Thank you to the team. You've put in so much work. Thank you, everyone.
And to you for this great moderation.
Bye. Ciao. Saitchen. Adios.
Adios.
Merci. Au revoir. I'll be listening. I'm like, which one's which one am I missing?
What's in Chinese? What is bye in Chinese?
Saitchen, I think.
Saitchen.
Yeah, I think. Whew.